It may look like it, but this isn't my tribute to the Blair Witch Project. In fact, this is the footage of a ride my dad and I did at the end of August, where we met our friend Marco Derricks. We went to show Marco Snowdonia. Of course, I can never just do a normal nice ride with my friends. I have to do something stupid, so I told my dad we were cycling out there. So yeah, Snowdonia is kind of on my doorstep, but it is a decent old way. So we had to set off in the dark, unfortunately, to meet Marco. Marco has been a friend of both of ours for a couple of years now. We joined the Backpedal online community together, and we chat. Marco will regularly comment on my videos, I'll regularly comment on Marco's Strava, etc. But we have never met. He seems like a lovely guy, so when he said he was going to do a road trip of the UK with his wife as a holiday, and he was going to bring his bike, would I like to ride with him? Absolutely. I was really excited for the opportunity to show him Snowdonia. The ride out to Llanrwst for me and my dad was actually top fun. Look at this incredibly steep hill that I never would have thought of doing without going to Llanrwst in order to do something else. This is a bit far for me to do by choice. I've put this in because my dad here, absolutely killing me. I'm doing 350 watts and my dad is saying, you know, I'm in my lowest gear, pedaling lightly, and the motor's just kicking in. There's nothing I can do. Yeah, he knew what he was doing. So my dad in his classic long ride attire with his musette bag. I've relied on filling my pockets and filling my bottles with a sugar mix. I have started making my own maltodextrin fructose blend. I'm going to do probably a very boring science video on that at some point to explain the different things I put in it and why, from my perspective as a research chemist, what each of them do in your body and why you'd put them in. Luckily, this video is not going to be that boring. Instead, I hope you'll enjoy the beautiful scenery and me riding with my mate. Unfortunately, because we were just enjoying the day, we sort of stitched together. Sometimes my camera's on, sometimes my dad's camera's on, sometimes it's all rear view. You'll get what footage you get, and if that makes it terrible, yeah, do apologise. I came up this hill on my Every Climb in the Conway Valley video, and I said it was quite good, but I didn't really have my camera on much, so here's a nice descent of the main road into Llanrwst. Cracking descent. Llanrwst's a beautiful village. Luckily by this time of day, the sun's out, which is fantastic. I was worried the week that Marco was here, the weather was pretty poor, and okay, that is representative of Wales, but it would have been nice to show him Snowdonia in the sunshine. So you can see that my dad's gone full mudguard on the back. I didn't, I gambled, and well, so far so good. So we were meeting Marco in the beautiful town of Betws y Coed. Scousers, you may not know where I've just named, but when I say Betsy Coed, you will. And this is where we met Marco and his wife, Inge. She took this lovely photo of us before we set off. I don't just love it because I look about 16 in it, not 32. I just think it's a nice photo of us all about to have a nice time, and off we set together. So the route was very simple. I wanted to go from Betws y Coed up Stwlan Dam in as short a loop as I could achieve. Cycling in Snowdonia is never that straightforward because there's bloody mountains in the way. It's not like riding around your suburban block where you can do a 1 mile loop. So this is the shortest loop that we could achieve all of that in. Originally, we'd planned to do this ride on Wednesday, but unfortunately, Marco texted me, apologised, and he said he had a really sore throat. He's done loads of driving, which I'll tell you about in a bit, and his wife wasn't like really well, and he was worried that he was going to come down with a bad cold, and he didn't want to do something like this strenuous. So I said, yeah, no worries. We went for a coffee in Chester instead, and Rhiannon came, and I met Inya, and he met Rhiannon, and we had a nice time. And luckily, we said, oh, we'll knock it on to Friday. I'll take another day off work. So yeah, kept the Wednesday off work. To the Friday off work, And as it happens, the weather was quite good, but I'd say just keep in mind that Marco had a throat infection and still had the sort of residual throat infection as we were doing this ride. So our first climb of the day this is up the Crimea Pass. I have heard different reasons that this is called Crimea. I think apparently it had a reputation for all of the staff fighting each other when it was being built in the 1800s, and it was while the Crimean War was going on, so they were saying there was as much fighting as the Crimean War. Anyway, that was very boring, sorry. I've only ever come down it. So when I said to Marco that we'll go over it, I said, oh, you know, coming down it, I don't think it was that tough a descent. And Marco's not necessarily the keenest hill climber, he clearly enjoys them. But he is conscious that on stuff over kind of 10% gets to be a bit of a slog for him. And I hadn't realised how much of the Crimea Pass was over 10%. It's not over 10% average, but it's a big climb, so having this in our legs straight away is tough. I just went off the front a little bit just to see how far we had to go, and turning around meant I got this magnificent view back down the Crimea. It's a fantastic view. And this is the main road, it comes up all the time in my videos. This is the A470, because you can't get around Wales without doing some of the A470. And yet, it was never too busy. I'm sure Marco would tell you it wasn't the best traffic-wise, but it wasn't horrific. And there you go, when we got to the top I said, just take as much time as you need. We'll recover. I know he was having some struggles with his confidence as we approached the bottom of Stwlan. And we were just going to see how it went. So, I won't go into it too much, but Marco hasn't always been as athletic as he is now. And it's quite an inspirational story, actually, which Phil Lovett's covered. And if I can time it right, I'll put a link to Phil's video about Marco's return to cycling on. But that's not what today's about. Today is about me trying to show a bit of the world I absolutely love to a mate that I am meeting for kind of the first time in person, and hope that he loves it as much as I do. So the holiday Marco and Inge had been on, they drove over from the Netherlands. Probably should have mentioned that Marco is Dutch before like 7 minutes 40 into the video. But Marco is Dutch and has come over, got the Channel Tunnel to Dover, and then has driven around the country here and there, meeting friends and YouTubers. So he met Scott of Com Hunt TV down in Exmoor, and he really seemed to love Exmoor. I've never been, but he was absolutely effusive with how incredible Exmoor was. It really kind of put it on the map for me as well. And then he met Ed Laverack down in South Wales, and then they'd driven up basically the entirety of Wales on, I think, the Tuesday before I met up with him. So, whilst he was getting to see how beautiful Wales was, I can understand the kind of stress of doing that long of a drive. Here we are approaching the bottom of Stwlan. Now, this is scenery you'll be familiar with if you've seen my 230k, 6,000 metres of elevation Tour RRI video. I've cut out lots and lots of us stopping and chatting and just, you know, catching up, just because the cameras aren't really good enough to pick it up. So I'd have loved to just snip in bits of us having a laugh, because non-stop on this ride, it was just chatting, enjoying the beautiful scenery, enjoying the opportunity to meet a mate in person. And here we go, approaching the infamous gate at the bottom of Stwlan. The moment you have to pick your bike up, pass it over, very inelegantly hop over, if you're me, and have a go up one of the most famous climbs in North Wales, I would say. Maybe still a little bit underrated, but I think it's on most people's radars these days. So if you're not familiar with it, Stwlan is just over 2.5k long at an average of almost exactly 10%. It's really steady gradient. It gets slightly steeper towards the end and there's a slightly flatter bit to the middle, but it really is quite consistent. What makes it really exciting to climb is that there's about 15 hairpins towards the top. So the view is sensational when you get up there. But we don't really do hairpins in the UK, do we? Or we don't do switchback, switchback, switchback. The reason Stwlan is like that is because it's the access road to a dam, which isn't traditional hydroelectric, but it's like energy storage dam. They pump water up this hill when there's a surplus in the grid, and they let it fall down to generate electricity when there's a need. There you go. That was another boring Nick fact as we push on up. So Marco had been saying he wasn't sure how far he'd make it because his throat was feeling pretty rough. But as soon as we got on the climb, it felt to me like there was no real doubt. He was strong in a really steady way. You know, when someone is just setting an absolutely consistent pace all the way up. Yes, it's tough, but no stress. Just going, getting up the climb. Here's the very first of the switchbacks, and this is one of my favourite points on the climb because you turn around and it's the first time you get to see behind you, back down to Tanagrisha, down to Blaena Festiniog. Blaena gets a bad rap because I've heard various stats about its troubles with drug use, and it's got social issues because all the quarries closed. But it's a nice town, it's a beautiful view down to the town. So yeah, I give a bit of Blaena love, even though it's excluded from Eryri National Park because the slate heaps were too ugly, apparently. So by this point, there's absolutely no doubt we're getting up this hill. We are finishing this climb. Switchback, switchback, switchback. We will get up there, even though they start to get steep. You're spurred on by seeing just how much elevation you've done. You're not quitting now. No doubt whatsoever. The tarmac is sensational as well, which for a Welsh climb isn't always the case. And again, it's because it's designed to service this dam. It's necessary to have beautiful tarmac. Shame about all the sheep poo all over it. Otherwise, would have been a 10 out of 10. I had said to my dad a couple of weeks before, maybe I'll find a way to wrangle me having a full gas attempt up here. And he said, just embrace us all riding it together as mates. That's the point. And I thought, that's really true, actually. And as we were going up, I thought, this is what it's all about, isn't it? Riding spectacular scenery with people you really enjoy their company, and just focusing on enjoying the day however you want. I love pushing myself to various limits, but sometimes just going out on your bike all day, no goal apart from nice time, fantastic. The views aren't really coming out on the camera. There's Nick's YouTube bingo, but I hope you get a feel for just how magnificent it is up here, to be honest. And sometimes when you're cycling up it can be hard to take in, but for me, if I were doing a full gas effort, I would really appreciate the opportunity to take in a view, just to spur me on, cheer me up, get me out of my own head a little bit, distract me from the pain in my legs. So here's a photo I took of Marco, which might give you some feel for the scale, the enormous scale of the landscape behind you that you get to be a part of as you cycle up here. It's really sensational. I don't know what else to say. I know my vocabulary on these videos is often lacking, but it's magnificent. And here's another one from the view, looking back down the road. Sacalobra it is not, but it's quite magnificent in its own way, and my dad and Marco are on there. I only went off a little bit just to take some nice photos, so we had some mementos from the day. I thought that would be worth it. And here Marco goes on his final assault at the top. Here's me randomly walking across the road and getting in the way. Fancy that. So it feels different up here. You can feel the temperature drop as you climb up this mountain, and you come around this corner and you see the lake, the man-made lake and the dam and stuff, and it really feels like you've achieved something quite fantastic as you crest this.
Like I said, like in Austria, that long climb, I just took it as easy as possible without falling over.
Yeah. Doing your circus act of bike balance.
Just like 6 kilometers an hour,
Yeah.
and that was probably I could have gone faster on that climb, but
Arguably, the best bit about climbing Stwlan is getting to descend Stwlan. It's a dead-end road, so of course you have to go back down the way you came through all those switchbacks. You get to come round the top, see this magnificent view, and then just tear down knowing this road is closed. There may be sheep and there may be pedestrians, there may be other cyclists, but there will not be a car, almost certainly. So I've left in the entire descent on 1.5 times just so it takes up a bit less time out of the video, partly because I think the views are incredible, and partly because it's a chance to show Marco in his element. He was great on the climbs for getting through them, but I think he's the sort of rider who climbs in order to descend, as opposed to me, who descends in order to get to the next climb. I tried to follow his line down here, and I really struggled just because of his confidence with the bike through the corners. He's not throwing the bike through them. It was as smooth as you like, absolutely beautiful lines around all of these hairpins, and you can see that he's done climbing and descending in the Alps, where I haven't, and he's got very used to these kind of behaviours, so it's incredible. This isn't like being rude about my dad, but we both dropped him pretty quickly because he's quite unashamedly happy to descend like an old man. He's got nothing to prove. He's not that fond of going really, really fast down descent, so he just takes it in his own pace, and you can just about make out Marco way down in the distance on some of this at this point, and he'd dropped me by miles at that point as well. So yeah, that's kind of the end of the hairpin bit, so I'll cut it there, but I hope it gives you an idea of the grandeur of this descent. Truly beautiful. Here we are at the gate again. Unfortunately, on the way down, my dad had dropped his chain.
chain off, oh dear.
So we stopped and did some very quick mechanical work. Luckily, it was no big deal. On e-bikes, things are slightly different, so the chain drop on the inside of the chain ring actually is more problematic. It was a bit grim, but fine. All sorted, no problem. So here we go back down Tanagrisha, past the Lakeside Cafe. Big plug for the Lakeside Cafe, by the way. It's like Rhiannon's friends she went to school with who run it, and they're lovely people. If you're in the area, do go and give them some business. And here's some more of my rear view camera footage, because I just want you to take in, I love these mountains. They're the Moylwins behind there. And I think they're just sensational, craggy, rocky Snowdonia at its finest. This isn't your tourist bottled up and polished sort of Snowdon with its footpaths and its steam train. These are the rugged cliffs of true Snowdonia. So we cut out here, and I said to my dad and Marco I was going to add a bit more of a climb, but let's not. Not because we wouldn't be able to do it, but because, in absolutely true Nick fashion, I had to be home at 5 because I had plans that I'd really firmly promised that I would be there for. If you've ever tried to do a 250k bike ride knowing that you have to be home at 5, it does add a little bit of stress. So I was a bit of a knobhead a couple of times on this ride, and I was like, right, we can't do this because I need to get home. We cannot have a cafe stop because I need to get home, etc., etc. So this is our final proper climb of the day, and I'm going to show you now the Strava segment for what would be the whole climb. We actually started a quarter of the way up, so I didn't quite do all of it, but I'd argue that this midnight climb might be the best climb in Wales you've never heard of. It's almost 10 km, it's almost 5% average, but it's got some fiercely steep parts, and it's got lots of rolling parts, very little bit of descent here and there, and the views, sensational. Again, it's this kind of rugged Snowdonia. It's wild, it's quarries, and it's manicured in that respect. It is bearing the scars of man, but it's not your tourist centre. So this climb was the KOM in the Tour of Britain the year it finished on the Great Orme. I can't remember what year that was. Was it 2021 maybe? And as you come up, you can see the Moyle Winds on the right. You can see a faint white dot in the middle of them. That's Stwlan. That's where we were. And we're climbing back up slowly. So this climb you saw goes almost up to 500 meters elevation. Not quite, but this is, 450 meters elevation if you did it fully from the bottom. The reason I cut off the first 1.5 kilometers, by the way, is because it's pretty much over 10% all the way. And also because it saved me time, let's be honest. Now, as it happened, this day turned out beautiful. We really thought we were going to get rained on this day, and yet the sun came out. It wasn't hot, but I don't mind that. It was, 15 to 18 degrees. It was a great cycling temperature, and the lighting meant that we could really enjoy the scenery. It staying dry meant that we were never miserable. So what a day it turned out to be. Just up here, we turned into the viewpoint that looks out over Cwnval, I think it's called. The Cwnval waterfall and stuff. Rhea de Cwnval. It's an amazing viewpoint. If you're ever near Festiniog, it's worth stopping because you can see out down to Porthmadog and the Llyn Peninsula, but you can also look behind you and see this beautiful waterfall. And then we took the final turn. This is the last bit up Midnight Moor over towards Ysbyty Ifan. On the day of recording this voiceover, I'm absolutely buzzing because 2 days ago I was driving over this way and I saw a hen harrier, which is a very rare bird of prey in the UK. So I contacted the RSPB, because I am an absolute loser, and that's the sort of thing I do, to let them know that I'd spotted it for their own records. And I've just got an email back from them thanking me, and they were pretty effusive actually about how delighted they were that I'd spotted one and how they think it's correct. So I got a big old smile on my face because I'm a nerd. Yeah, that's just the sort of thing that I enjoy. Thankfully, we're going to go back to Dadcam now for another cracking descent. Now that we've done that huge climb, it's all out the way. It may not have been the steepest, but it's long. It's really long. We did about 8k of it. And now we're going to descend Pen Machno. The way up it is called the Pen Machno Climb from Hell. I've talked about that before. I've shown it on this channel before. It's not hellish. It's hard, but it's beautiful. Descending it is fantastic. You come around a corner here. Look at this tarmac, by the way. Again, not very Welsh. Very high quality. You come around this corner and it's a classic glacial valley, I think. I'm not really a geographer or a geologist, but it just looks magnificent. There's a house on the left here that I want to live in because it's this beautiful picturesque farmhouse, and look at that view. Imagine living with that view every day. It's magnificent. Descending this kind of shelf road, it's on the side of this valley as you go down. Look at Marco just disappearing. He'd had a little, almost a wheel skid as we met that car at the top. Didn't faze him whatsoever. No one was hurt, so off he went again. We descend into a slightly different kind of environment, a natural environment, than where we came from. Midnight's quite bleak in a way, in a nice way, but rocky, craggy, sparse, and you come down into this verdant valley, and it's just breathtaking how green and how lush it feels. It's stunning down here. This road, without ever being exciting, to me is magnificent because you cycle alongside a river the whole way down a valley, and in the direction we're going, it's just like a gradual descent in beautiful surroundings. It's not the sort of thing you'd be like, oh, I need to stop and take a photo of that, I need to do this, I need to do that. But it's sensational. And in absolute pragmatic fashion, you'll be glad to know that there's a village there called Pen Machno that you go through that has free public toilets. I never said this channel was glamorous. I like to address the practicalities of cycling together. And in Wales, middle of nowhere, finding a nice clean toilet is excellent. I'd had a bit of a soggy tyre, and it always tickles me. speeding up, pumping up tyres. Hilarious. Great. A grand total of one person laughed at that, and I'm doing a voiceover at the moment. So the village of Penmachnar used to be, dare I say it, a little bit sad. Everything had closed, there was no shop, there was no pub. And it's had a bit of a revival of late. There were a couple of shops open, a couple of pubs open. I think it's really great to see, because it is quite far from anything, so having a proper little community feel was fantastic. And then we're just heading back to Betws-y-Coed now. This road has a beautiful ancient Roman bridge on it, and it brings you out at the A470 again, not far at all from the car park. So here we go, coming into Betws-y-Coed, because I wanted to show Marco the bridge. Here's the ride Marco did. A real achievement, a really great day, and here's the ride my dad and I did. I was an hour late for those plans. I just wanted to show really what a great day we had, in my opinion. I really enjoyed meeting Marco. I really enjoyed getting to do this ride and just love a day out with great company. So rather than a photo of my bum, here's the photos that we were taking on these bridges. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video.